Welcome to Category Visionaries, the show dedicated to exploring exciting visions for the future from the founders who are on the front lines building it. In each episode, we'll speak with a visionary founder who's building a new category or reimagining an existing one. We'll learn about the problem they solve, how their technology works, and unpack their vision for the future. I'm your host, Brett Stapper, CEO of Frontlines Media. Now let's dive right into today's episode. Hey everyone, and thanks for listening. Today I'm speaking with Chandler Malone, CEO and founder of Bootup, an educational labor marketplace that recently raised over $2 million in funding. Chandler, thanks for chatting with me today.
Brett, thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, so before we begin talking about what you're building at Bootup, let's start with a quick summary of who you are and a bit more about your background.
Yeah, definitely. I think my journey really began, as a college student, came in not necessarily really knowing exactly what I wanted to do. Majored in American Culture Studies, took a really wide array of classes. But, my sophomore year, I had two really interesting things kind of happen to me at the same time. One was that I took a class called The Anxieties of Digital Technology and Modern Media, where I had to write 25-page research papers on Snapchat, which as a 19-year-old, I was an avid Snapchat user. And, Evan Spiegel, the founder at the time, was still in his early 20s, which just created this feeling of proximity and connection, while also still just this feeling of massive inspiration at the scale of what they were able to build. And then also a 25-page research paper on Square, which, I went from having to bring cash, every time into the barbershop, right, to being able to use card and seeing these things take place in my daily life. And also the creator of the Square Reader, Jim McKelvey, was a professor at my university. So again, right, this feeling of proximity to these innovations that created massive scale was incredibly inspirational for me. At that same time, launched a business with a friend, just started off, doing kind of small scale concerts in the city of St. Louis before we ultimately grew to bringing in Billboard top 10 artists, such as the Chainsmokers. And so being able to have some entrepreneurial success, but then also get exposed to the scale of technology so early on, basically let me know at that point that this was the path that I wanted to take. And so from there, worked on a couple other startups, did a few stints in venture before finally, coming up with the idea that is Bootup. And so super excited to be here and really thankful for the journey.
Nice. Well, let's dive into Bootup. So in simple terms, what problem are you solving and for who?
Yeah, so there's a massive tech talent gap. Even with this current, economic crisis that we're in, there are more than 2 times as many open jobs in tech as there are applicants for roles. And so, with that being said, right, just like we can't breathe without air, right? Like we can't live without water. Companies cannot grow without human capital. And so for us, we're making it easier for individuals to get the technical training that they need to be able to step in and come in and be productive employees. On the other side, right, just having a quality life is becoming more and more difficult, right? We see costs of living skyrocketing. And a lot of times folks see certain things as blockers towards economic mobility. But the tech industry needs talent so badly. And I think the tech industry just prides itself on being so innovative and not doing things just because they used to be done that way. And so, there really is an opportunity for individuals, right, who may not have had opportunities to have certain type of careers, right, come through Bootup, get access to tech training programs, and have upwardly mobile careers from an economic perspective that they may not have otherwise had access to as well.
Got it. Very cool. And what are tech companies doing right now, would you say, to try to solve this talent gap? And where are those efforts falling short?
Yeah. So I will say that we're finding more and more companies, right, sourcing talent from these non-traditional sources, right, like outside of just, the college market for entry-level talent. For example, want to name out just a few blue chip companies, right? You think about Google, you think about Meta, you think about Amazon, you think about JP Morgan Chase, and you think about Microsoft. These are 5 just the most prominent companies within technology and finance that we know, in our country. And those companies in 2020 hired an average of 500 folks who came from non-traditional tech training programs per company, right? And so you see what the elite companies are doing. They're still moving outside of where they had traditionally been gaining talent. You look at a company like Netflix, right? That's seen as, one of the most desirable companies for engineers to work at due to their compensation packages, right? Netflix has launched their own in-house boot camp that individuals can join immediately after graduating high school. And once they complete the boot camp, they can get a full-time job with Netflix. Shopify, one of the other highest paying companies in the tech sector and a very desirable company to work at, is rolling out the same thing in Canada, right? And so we see what the companies who already get the best talent are doing. Unfortunately, right, there are a number of companies that are not necessarily tech native companies and are just beginning their tech transformation process. Think, a number of your major retailers out there, right? And so those companies, because they are newer to just the talent sphere and technology, they don't necessarily understand how dire the talent crisis is and how competitive the market is. And we're seeing some of your more traditional companies that are moving into this tech sector still try to use those traditional hiring methods. And those are the companies that are really suffering when it's coming down to getting access to talent. So, yeah.
Got it. That makes sense. Now, when it comes to market categories, how do you think about them? Are you building a new market category? Does this fit into an existing market category, or is that still to be determined?
Yeah, I mean, I think this fits into an existing market category, but markets shift and change all the time, right? And so, at the end of the day, like our business model with enterprises is the same as what the recruiting agencies and staffing agencies have done for so long, right? What other companies in the space, like Handshake and Ripple Match and Indeed and others, have done for so long, right? And so we're really not doing anything new on that side. But at the end of the day, the world is changing just from a labor preparation, right, an educational pathways perspective. And so while we aren't necessarily doing something completely new, right, we are grabbing talent from a new source, right? And we're introducing people to a new way to get trained. And so education is always going to continue to evolve based upon the needs of what enterprises have, because we can have this philosophical debate of, is education about the pursuit of knowledge, or is education about preparing one, for a job so that they're able to live in the world? And at the end of the day, institutions from an educational perspective are always going to lean towards the side of the enterprise, because the way that we measure whether or not an educational institution is successful or credible or worthy is if folks are able to get jobs out of them. And so kind of long-winded answer there, but all that to say, like, we're definitely doing something new. But at the same time, I feel like it's a natural evolution of just where the labor marketplace was going to go anyway.
Got it. Makes sense. And I know you call yourselves an educational labor marketplace. Can you define what that is?
Yeah. So, I think a traditional labor marketplace, right, is a place where individuals can go to find work, and companies can go to find workers. We include that educational labor piece because we know that individuals are coming to us to find work, but we also help equip them with the skills that they need to find that work before they actually begin the search. And so that's really what we mean when we say educational labor marketplace. We help people get the skills that they need to then get the jobs that they're looking for.
Got it. And you launched in July 2021. What kind of traction have you seen so far?
Yeah, it's been crazy, honestly. So, over the past 11 months, we've placed 1,230 individuals in their first jobs in tech for over 88 million in annualized salaries. And, we've placed folks at some of the biggest companies in the world: JP Morgan Chase, Dell, Home Depot, Microsoft, Amazon, just to name a few.
Wow. And what would you say excites you most about the work that you're doing here?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, while the enterprise is our customer, right, and the individual is not our customer, we're helping people, like we're helping individuals. And so just getting a note on LinkedIn every once in a while from someone who came through the platform, and got a job, right? Like those types of things make you feel, obviously, having a successful business, right, is incredibly, fulfilling. But knowing that the work that you're doing, the work that you're literally getting compensated to do, is being seen as life-changing by some of your constituents, that's incredibly fulfilling. And from that perspective, I feel like I could not really be doing anything else or spending my time doing anything that would be more fulfilling than the work that we're doing.
Very cool. And what's in store for the future of Bootup? What will the company look like in 5 years?
I love to use this analogy, right? Amazon started off with books, but from the very beginning, they knew that this was going to be bigger than online Barnes and Noble, right? And so for us, we're starting in tech, but at the end of the day, there are huge labor shortages in various industries, right? In healthcare, right? In accounting, right? And at the end of the day, we see that in tech, the educational requirements have changed to fill, some of these labor gaps. And I feel the same way about other industries. And so we look up 5 years from now, and we don't want to just be helping upskill and reskill folks to be able to get roles in tech, but we want to be able to help folks, be able to get roles in a number of different industries, just as the world continues to shift and change.
Amazing. Well, that's all we're going to have time to cover for today. If people want to follow along with your journey as you continue to build this company and scale it, where should they go?
Yeah, definitely. So you can visit us online at www.joinbootup.com. And then you can also find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and Twitter at joinbootup as well.
Amazing. Well, thanks again. And we look forward to seeing you execute on this vision.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rhett.
Keep in touch.